Hey folks, Jimmy Roberts here, your local real estate appraiser, and today we are continuing our series about the bad appraisals and how to identify them and what you can do about them. So today we're going to talk about the next inconsistency or the next error that I found in an appraisal that I received. Just to recap, I received a call from a friend. He has a duplex that he was selling. He sent me a copy of the appraisal. Long and the short of it, the appraisal sucks. So we're going to jump right into it. So as you guys remember from the first video here, consistency matters. Again, I'm going to repeat that. Consistency matters. When it did not appear that the appraiser from page one had consistency. It was inconsistent from the very start, or at least the data that he provided just didn't make sense. But that's okay. So we're going to jump right into it. So here we go. So again, this is our duplex property. The opinion of value, $90,000. I'm going to keep pointing that out for a reason. We'll get to it in the next video. So here you go. After everything's all said and done, let's talk about the condition of the property. All right. So we jump down to the condition of the property, and what's interesting is the appraiser said that the subject has been adequately maintained. Well, here's what that means, folks. Adequately maintained means that it's an average condition. That's what that means. It means that there are no apparent issues with the property. The property is habitable. It's an average condition. Hasn't been completely renovated. Hasn't been completely torn up. It's average. It's habitable. It's ready to go. In terms of a rental property, as this property is, it means that the property is currently habitable and rentable as it stands right now. The owner does not have to do anything to bring a renter in and have that renter be happy. Okay, that is what that means. Okay, so here the appraiser says the subject has been adequately maintained. But here's where the inconsistency comes. On the next page of this report, and we'll jump into that in the next video, this appraiser says that the market rents that he chose, market rent, by the way, market rent, that's very important. Market rent is the rent that you should expect to get from this property if it were offered on the public market. It's not the rent that you may be currently getting, and it's not some ridiculous rent that you get only in your head, right? Like, I should be able to rent this property for $30,000 a month. See, that's ridiculous. That is not market rent, right? But the fact that you've been renting it to your cousin for the last 10 years for $250 a month is also not market rent, all right? So anyway, going back to here. Here, the appraiser says that market rents are reflective of the subject's deferred maintenance being addressed. So here's the problem with that. Now, I just told you that he said that the property was adequately maintained. Let me ask you this question. Does a property that is adequately maintained have deferred maintenance and that needs to be addressed? Probably not. After all, it's in adequate condition. It's habitable. I didn't see anything, right? Looks like a house. There you go. So why is it now on the next page of this appraisal, as it turns out, when you're talking about rental income, that the rental income that this property can garner, why is it now he's saying that the property has deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed? See, that's an issue, right? That's an issue. Now you're throwing darts at the property, saying that the property needs to be fixed up. That is improper. That's inconsistent with the information that he just provided about the condition. That's the issue. It's inconsistent. Here's the other thing, and you'll see this in a second. $550 for a 2-bedroom flat in our current market is extremely low. As it turns out, $550 per month is also just happens to be the rent that the current tenant occupant is paying because he's been there for a long time and the homeowner just didn't feel like raising the rent. Isn't that ironic that it is exactly the same? Amazing. Amazing. And by the way, this is market rent according to this appraiser. It's market rent. It's not the rent that is currently being appraised at, although he does acknowledge that here, right here. He does acknowledge that, but he's also saying that it should also be the market rent, which tells me that he did not do a market analysis at all. That's what that tells me. So, all right, so that's number 2. Number 1, you have to be consistent and provide reasonable information. Basically, you got to fill out the form. 2, the data that you provide has to be consistent throughout. So if you say that the property is in decent shape and there are no problems, you can't later then say, oh, the property has issues. You got to be consistent. Alrighty? So I think that's going to sum it up for this particular video. We're going to tackle some other things in the next. Talk to you in a few.